G'day, Chief. Welcome to the Inner Chief podcast and this special episode, which we call the Mini Chief. These are short, sharp highlights from our fabulous CEO guests, where you get a 5 to 10 minute snapshot of the highlights from their episode. Righto, Chief. Without further ado, here is the Mini Chief episode for this week with renowned hotel developer Rory Hunter. So, in the end, this led you to coming back to Australia, but the journey back was not on Cathay Pacific. You decided to sail home, and you actually, there's a little sort of video blog you did on this little thing called Seeking Solitude. I just want to read something from that and ask you a couple of questions. Is that all right?
Yeah.
You said this: out there on the open ocean, I found forgiveness, love, and acceptance of all that I am. An inner peace I'd forgotten existed. But while I thought what I needed was to be alone, I realised it's human connections that make us whole, that bring us happiness and let our hearts soar. A simple truth I'd forgotten in my quest to become a successful entrepreneur. A truth I hold now as the keystone of my being. Now, what do you mean by this?
Well, I think maybe just I'll take a couple of steps back.
Sure.
It had been such a big chapter in Asia. I really wanted to demarcate that in some way. Sort of one last adventure. I think agency is such a huge part of the human experience, and so with all this chaos happening in my professional and private life, this felt like one thing that could be mine, and obviously I was, grieving and really sad. And so I was reading a lot of Henry Thoreau at the time. And, he's got some great perspectives on the healing power of nature. And for a whole bunch of reasons, I thought, yeah, you know what, I'm going to sail home. And partly because I thought that'd be a good place to, cry and to heal. Partly because I thought it'd be a way to go home on my terms rather than, with the proverbial tail between my legs. And I think the third thing looking back is that, when we are under immense stress, our cognition's seriously impaired. And so I look back at myself then and think, mate, what were you thinking? You've never actually done a night solo ever before. And so, it's a long way. It's 4,000 nautical miles. It took 6 weeks. So I think it's a long way of saying that, we all make mistakes. We all try to be the best version of ourselves. But it's often hard to see that. We often focus on the negative or what didn't work. And I love the Churchill quote, success is not final, failure is not fatal. What matters is the courage to go on. And I think when you're an entrepreneur, you get these sorts of highs and lows, and they can be exhausting. And over that process, I'd sort of forgotten who I was. I'd forgotten the person that I used to be really proud of, and I wasn't in a good place. And so more than anything, I went because I thought I needed to be alone. But what I realized is that the things that matter are those people you love. I took a sat phone, had a special number, and I had a special email that compressed the data and sort of sent it off, but no attachments or anything. So I had SMS and email, and so I only gave that number to people that I really, really cared about. And so it meant that I was always connected. My mum, every morning, first thing she'd do is she'd wake up and send me a message, probably just to make sure I was alive. But I spoke to my friends more in that 6 weeks and my parents than I had, the last 6 months. And all the noise from, the chaos of COVID and media and shareholders and staff, and, that just peeled away. And so, I read lots, and I was terrified probably half the time. But there's nowhere to hide out there. It's simply just you. And so, you, success or failure is really on your own shoulders. And so there's something really quite beautiful about that. There were so many times when, just the first night I left Hong Kong Harbour and this huge storm rolled in. And keeping in mind, I had never done a full overnight solo. And this storm was about 45 knots of breeze. And for anyone that spent time in the ocean, like that's serious wind. And so what happens in that sort of wind speed is that the ocean gets really tall and it gets very, very loud. And I was in the South China Sea, which is the second busiest shipping lane in the world, and visibility was at probably a couple hundred meters. And so I would see all these merchant vessels sort of bearing down on me on different vectors on my AIS system, and basically just sort of trying to weave through them with the autopilot, because it was so terrifying on deck with all this wind that I was really just doing everything I could to just get through. But I wasn't turning back. Like, there was not one part of me that was ever going to turn back. So that's what I mean by, I think my cognition was fairly impaired. It wasn't a death trip, but, I was going home no matter what.
A bit like a rebirth more than a death. Hey, you said one thing that you realized along the journey, that the ocean has a rhythm. You started to realize that the ocean has its own rhythm. How did you come to feel that, and what did you notice? What was the evidence of that?
At a simplistic level, it's, the sun rising, sun setting, the rhythm throughout the day of just the light and the way it reflects off the waves. But at a more deeper level, it's the constant changing. Sometimes you'd be having a beautiful afternoon, and then the next thing you know, this black wall of squall comes through and knocks you sideways, and it's blowing 30 knots and rain bellowing into your face, and then 2 hours later it's gone and it's becalmed. And so what I meant by that is that the one constant out there is change. It's never, ever, ever the same. And, some people would say, "Oh, didn't you get bored looking at the horizon?" And I'd be like, no, because it was never the same. You think that the horizon is the horizon, but it's really not. It changes so often. And, I think as humans, we really struggle with change. We want certainty, but of course we can't get it. And so by embracing that change and thinking about it as a rhythm, you get a beautiful sunset, but then you get a squall at 3 a.m. and your body's wiping sleep out of your eyes, getting pelleted in the face with the rain and desperately trying to work out which way is up. And then the next day you'll see a pod of dolphins welcoming you across the equator. And so it's the ebbs and the flows, the goods, the bads, that's what I meant by a rhythm. And I think, that's what life's about. It's always changing, but just when you think it couldn't get any worse, something beautiful happens.
There's a great saying I heard once, which was, "Spend some time living at the speed of nature." It's a really cool little saying, I think. We all need to do a bit more of that. Righto, Chief. There you have it for this week with our mini Chief episode. All the links and resources for this episode can be found at chiefmaker.com/313. And if you'd like to stay in touch with Chiefmaker, just go to chiefmaker.com/subscribe. Chief, one of the core skills of all great chiefs is the ability to interview and recruit the very best performers to your team. Now, many chiefs say to me that they get up to 25 or even 40% of their recruitment decisions wrong. Now, many of you who listen to this show will know that over the last 6 years, we have asked dozens of CEOs what is their number one interview question when recruiting for senior roles. What we have done is turn that into an invaluable resource. It is the 30 most powerful interview questions used by CEOs to hire high performers. These are the questions that reveal the true nature of the person in front of you. They are the ones that give or create that truth-telling moment that will help you decide whether to hire or not. Chief, if you want this resource, just go to chiefmaker.com/interview and just pop in your details and download the detailed PDF. Righto, Chief. As always, remember to stay